Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Underserved, the podcast for the rest of the tech industry. I'm your host, Andrew Gelina. Joining me this week is Sean Mack, CIO and CISO at Wiley. Sean, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Andrew. Great to be here today.
We appreciate you joining us. Why don't we start with ancient history? What got you interested in technology way back when?
You know, it has been a while, Andrew. I feel like I've been interested in technology pretty much most of my life. Actually, I remember I started learning about computers when I was just a kid. I remember learning how to program Dungeons and Dragons games back on old 386, i386. So yeah, just a little while there. And it's always just been something I've loved. And it's been a wonderful experience to have that go through my entire life and make it into a bit of a career. I wish I had it here. I have this old box of 5.25-inch floppies with my name in all caps scrawled across in silver pen. It's a beautiful kind of relic of the past, but a great, great testament to how long I've been passionate about technology.
Yeah, I've got some zip drives and other digital hoarding going on myself.
I keep trying to purge, but this one box of 5.25 floppies is one that's going to stick with me.
Too close to your heart. So when did you start working in technology?
You know, I've been working pretty much my entire life as well. And I think that's something that's really benefited me. Not always in technology, but off and on for most of my life. I worked my way through high school. I worked my way through college. I mean, my first jobs were like walking dogs. But, you know, there's some money in it in New York City. But quickly migrated into computers, computer science. Some of my earlier jobs were actually in tech writing, which interestingly gave me a great foundation for a future career, which would be technical, but also communications, and also about how do we not only do the technology, but make sure we're communicating cohesively about what that technology is and what that strategy is.
And then where'd you go to school?
Yeah, and then I progressed and technology continued along to be part of my life. Although I went to school at the University of California, Santa Cruz. Amazing place to go to school. But I'll tell you, right off the bat, I wasn't sure that it was going to be technology. I started with a pretty broad education, really trying to figure out why I was there and what I wanted to get out of college, and learning a whole plethora of things to try and determine that.
Yeah, that's become a much more expensive proposition these days. You know, I think there's a lot of pressure for kids to know what they want to do before they set foot there.
It has. I mean, it's interesting, especially being in education now, EdTech now. It's very interesting. And also having a daughter of my own, thinking about what is the future of education. Not to go right there, but I also think that it's a problem that we expect kids with very little real world experience to know that. I had what I consider a really fortunate experience. I took some time off after my first year of college, really not knowing exactly why I was there. I took about 3 years off and I traveled the world. I worked different jobs all around the world. I worked horrible jobs cleaning bars up early in the morning, and I worked some jobs like I ended up working 60 hours a week doing financial planning and basically as a spreadsheet jockey. But those experiences combined helped me refocus, because after working 60 hours a week as a business manager, I came back to college and I was so excited to be there. And I was so excited to study computers. And I said, I want to focus on computer science. And I would hear people complaining about having to go to class. And I, at that point, had a new realization for what a privilege it was to get to spend my day studying, right? And that wasn't something I had that first year. And it's very hard to have that focus or appreciation when your life experience has been nothing but another class, another teacher, another school. So I really found it lucky. Now, I'm not sure if you know the University of Santa Cruz at all, but it's a beautiful place. And I moved all the way from New York City to Santa Cruz, beautiful campus. I ended up spending, all my time in a small little dark computer lab in the basement of one of these buildings, surrounded by this beautiful campus. So I didn't actually get to enjoy it very much. But again, luckily, the college was transitioning to a much more engineering and technology focus. And I ended up getting a really good education in technology and came out of it with the skills I needed to really progress from there.
Yeah, I think that the time off and working some jobs that make you realize I really don't want to work these jobs ever again will give you a heck of an appreciation for the educational opportunity. And yeah, before meeting you, the only thing I knew about UC Santa Cruz is they were the fighting banana slugs from seeing that T-shirt in Pulp Fiction.
Yes. Their most iconic image is that T-shirt in Pulp Fiction. But what a wonderful mascot, too, the banana slug. I really appreciate it. And there were quite a few out there as well.
All right, so you graduate your way out of there. Where do you end up working after that?
One of the first steps out of there and first real steps in a career in technology leadership was a role as CIO for a startup streaming media company called iNet Live TV. This was a really interesting time to be in technology. I had worked, again, all through college, worked in the labs, worked doing Unix programming at the University of California. So I came out with not only a great degree, but a great amount of working experience. And this was a time, kind of the tail end of the tech boom of those days. So I got involved in a startup. We were focused on streaming media, and I got to lead their technology teams. And it was amazing because exciting time and all the technology opportunities that were out there, but also great to have that experience to get hands-on with technology, but also deeply involved with the founders, the CEO, the investors from a long-term strategic perspective, and both build on the business skills, but also build on the technical skills.
Yeah, a startup, usually you find yourself being chief cook and bottle washer pretty quickly.
That's exactly right.
You have to do a little bit of everything.
I got to help build the servers, help write the code, but also write the 5-year strategy and get to wear all those hats, manage the teams that were helping me do it, but be really hands-on in everything we were doing.
What sort of content were they streaming?
Whatever they could get. It was interesting because it was kind of almost a little bit ahead of its time, right? You look at major players like YouTube and it's like, yeah, that was the idea. They just didn't quite find the market, or the time was maybe a little too early even. But we did everything from like live game shows to immersive 360-degree submarine trips. We had a couple of partnerships with major channels who were also looking at how do we get out there, and we pull down their satellite feed and actually broadcast that out. So it was a real mix and a real look for where is the market and how do we capitalize on that with a focus on streaming media.
And so from there, I think you moved on to Think Tank?
That's right. Think Tank was actually a company we had been working with for a while, trying to help them build out their streaming media offering. But really, essentially, they were a marketing company and they needed to figure out how to be a technology company. And I had the experience in development and quality assurance, in building systems and building streaming media to really help them out. And so I started working with them, and it was actually a lot of fun. We got to build their development team and strategy and offering from basically the ground up. They had a small crew who was doing that. But when I came in there, what I saw was they were essentially developing nice looking websites. And I said to them, I said, that's great, but who's going to go to a website just to look at a sales pitch? No one, right? So we've got to make this interactive. We've got to make it a value add. We've got to make it sticky, something that people are going to come to and want to stay and get value out of. Right? I don't watch TV to check out a Coca-Cola commercial. Right? I watch TV because I'm engaged in the content. So I got to build that development and quality assurance team, more than doubled their business in that space, and really invent a whole line of business for them, which was really quite exhilarating.
What did they do to move away from static hangout your shingle type pages to make it stickier?
They worked with a whole variety of customers. So it was really down to the customer. One of the customers that I remember was the Department of Energy. They were based in Chicago, and the Department of Energy was one of the big customers. And there was a ton of data about energy usage and energy efficiency that no one had access to. And so this is just one example of one client we worked with, and we said, hey, what if we can make that available? What if we could make that easily available so that your customers or researchers or people interested in energy could mine it, right? Now it's a tool that people are coming to use and get engaged with and think with this customer. So that was just one example. We did the same for banks, for a whole variety of different types of businesses like that to really build a full engaging user experience.
And then from there, after working with their codecs for a long time, you finally go to work with Real Networks?
That's right. That's right. This is still when Real Networks, if you remember them, were the kings of streaming media, were the key player there. And I was really excited. Going back to iNet Live TV, I've been on the forefront of streaming media and this new media wave that is coming to technology. And so, yeah, I've been working with their servers. I've been working with their codecs for a long time. And I had actually moved out to Seattle by this point, and I was able to join Real Networks. And it was great. Great company, doing exciting things, working with people whose, like you said, whose codecs I'd been using for many years, and really getting engaged with Real Networks and streaming media in a whole new way.
What was it like going out to Seattle after being in New York for so long?
Well, I do recall I was at college in Santa Cruz. So
That's nice weather, though.
Right. Yes, the weather was a different weather system there, but I had at least been exposed to the calmer, somewhat slower pace of the West Coast already. Although the transition from New York to Santa Cruz was a bit of a shock to the system for sure. But, actually a lot of my colleagues in college were from Seattle and then moved back there. So one of the reasons I went there was because I already had quite a network there. So that was not too bad, not as much of a shock to the system as the transition to Santa Cruz.
I think at Real, that's when you started moving more into operations as well, right?
That's right. That's right. So I started there in development and quality assurance, but then I moved into operations. And I've been lucky to work in all parts of technology and really see the full spectrum. And I loved it. And I'll tell you for a few reasons, right? And first of all, let me say one of the things we did there was build out this massive new network operations center. And we built it right at the front of the Real Networks building. And we had a team that was sitting there 24/7. And you could come in, and one of the things they were streaming then was Big Brother. And I'm not sure if you remember the show, but
yeah.
I could walk into the NOC 24 hours a day and see all the feeds of people sleeping or doing whatever sort of crazy stuff they were doing 24 hours a day, as well as all the other things. There was a time they were partnering with Major League Baseball and all the rest. So exciting place to be and a great place to be in operations. Two other things I'll tell you about that. One of the other things I loved about this role and moving into operations was really where all the pieces came together. And in fact, at that time, the company was going through this transition from operating in silos to operating as one company. And so that network operations center that I mentioned was just one facet. That was kind of the focal point where all these different lines of business now came together. But this was a matter of bringing together disparate businesses that were used to acting independently to look to ways we could work together in a way that was not only more efficient from a cost perspective and cost management perspective, but also more effective at delivering technology to their customers. And so that was really exciting. And the other thing I loved about it was just being where the rubber meets the road. In development, you can spend months, you can spend years working on a feature for one product. But being in operations, we got to see everything. You get to see everything the company does. And you get to see where that meets the customer. And that really was exciting for me. That's really exciting place to be. So I really had a great time there.
It can be beautiful, or it can be seeing the sausage getting made.
Right. Usually a little bit of both, I'd say. Yes, absolutely. Beautiful and horrifying at the same time. Exactly.
There was an interesting transition then, because all the broadcasters who had gotten used to putting up their antennas or maybe pumping things through cable now realized that webcasters were a thing.
Yeah. That's absolutely right. In fact, when I started, my team had a broadcast operations center and a network operations center. And so one of the things we did was to completely digitize that broadcast operations center and integrate it into the network operations center. We said, we don't need two teams sitting here 24/7 monitoring separate systems. What we need to do is digitize it all and bring it together. And so that was exactly what you ended up with.
All right. So you had enough of the West Coast. What happens next?
That's right. Yeah. So after that, I moved back to the East Coast and I joined a completely different type of company, Experian. So working in a large financial company, I was working in the marketing side of the business. But again, in technology, helping run their operations and services and development teams. But yeah, that brought me back to New York City, brought me back home. So it was a good reason to get back to my hometown.
I think that's where you had to build a Follow the Sun support organization too.
That's right. That was quite a fun experience. So a lot of what we did at Real Networks in terms of bringing these two teams together helped to build a model that I've used at Experian and many other places in terms of best-in-class broader operations. And so certainly one of the things we looked at when I moved to Experian was building that 24/7, 365 support model. They, again, had it in many pieces, and we got to bring it together, building better service at a lower cost, 24/7 rapid response. Now, we got to improve on it because we actually got to build out the Follow the Sun model here. So had less people staying up all night. And also by building the Follow the Sun model, we had geo redundancy. So if there was a issue in any geography, we had the secondary operations center to fall back on. But we actually built out one team in Costa Rica. The second team built out in Kuala Lumpur. I think we built out the team in about 48 hours. That was the quickest. Yeah.
Were you actually there?
Yeah. I mean, we had laid the groundwork before that, but I got to travel there. And I think I hired probably about 100% of the team in that 48 hours. So we could get back and get them up and running and really implement that Follow the Sun model.
Wow.
That was a fun one.
It's too bad you didn't take the surfing classes at UC Santa Cruz. It would have come in useful at Costa Rica and Kuala Lumpur.
Yes. In fact, the only time I've surfed in my life was in Costa Rica.
Hey, sport. How was school today?
It was okay, Dad. How was work?
Actually, I had a rough day. Leading an engineering team is hard. I mean, I have to ship new software, meet deadlines, and tackle new projects while keeping my team focused on the day-to-day. It's hard to keep up.
Jeepers, Dad. Why don't you call Syrinx? They're the software engineering firm run by software developers. They helped Billy's dad. He used to be stressed out like you. He was missing deadlines, his team was overworked, and a bunch of folks left the company because it was too stressful. But then he called Syrinx. and they put developers to work right away. He hit all his deadlines and freed up his team to do other work. His boss was so happy Billy's dad got some extra time off.
Time off? Wow. What did he do with that?
He spent it with Billy.
That's a swell idea, son. I'll call Syrinx today. Now, you go wash up for supper.
So from there, did you go to Pearson?
That's right. And that was in Boston. And that was really great place to be as well. I love getting involved with EdTech and moving there. I mean, one thing I'll say is I've worked in a whole bunch of industries, and I found wherever I go, they all run on computers. And the similarities far outweigh the differences. But it was really exciting to transition to EdTech.
Why did you kind of aim for EdTech?
Well, look, you can do a lot of things if you're in technology. And to be able to focus on helping other people and helping other people through education is really a wonderful thing to be doing. I'll tell you, at Experian, we were focused on MarTech and marketing, and especially being in the operations space, I'd be up at 2 a.m. so that you could get your 20% off coupon in your email inbox by 5 a.m, right? And I said to myself, if I can do anything, and if I'm going to be up at 2 o'clock in the morning, how wonderful is it that I can be up in the morning so that people can learn around the world, right? That seems a lot more gratifying to me than making sure you get your discount coupon. And not to denigrate that, there were millions of dollars pouring through these MarTech systems. This was very important business to be done. But with the effort I put into my work, with the focus I put into technology, really a privilege to be able to do that so that people can learn better and so that we can leverage technology to help educate people around the world.
I think that's where you got to roll out an enterprise level DevOps as well.
Yeah, so DevOps has been a big focus of mine over the past several years. And I think my focus here really started at Pearson. My first experience working on enterprise level DevOps. I mean, a lot of the concepts of DevOps were there all along and were part of what we're doing when we start to think about collaboration, when we start to think about facilitating smaller batch sizes and the like. But this was a real focused exercise to take leaders in all bands of technology and all bands of business and bring them together to roll out DevOps. And that was an exciting moment for me, really still at the onset of DevOps in general, to get to be involved with that, to be involved with some of the DevOps thought leaders when DevOps was still a thing that was very much in its formation, and to get to roll that out at scale.
And I think you took your DevOps chops from there to your next job?
That's right. In fact, I launched my own company after that, global company focused on building open source software, but also focused on helping companies through that DevOps transformation. And that was really wonderful as well. I learned about DevOps. I learned about how you deploy it in enterprises, and to be able to then take that experience and build my own company around that and help other companies go through that transformation was really wonderful. And I loved leading my own company, built out a global team, and got to work with some really exciting other companies to help them make that transformation.
Yeah, I've found that doing consulting and helping other people in gigs like that, it can be like dog years, but you do get an awful lot of experience quickly.
It absolutely is. But you get to have an impact in a really short period of time, get to come into companies that really need help, right? What I like to think of as target-rich environments, and help them transform. And part of my leadership is as a transformational leader. And so to get to work with some really large name companies, help them through the transformation, specifically around DevOps, was really, really exciting place to be.
What do you think the customers felt they got out of it? Was it better stability? Was it better velocity? What was it?
Yeah, this is one of the reasons I'm so passionate about DevOps is that you get both, right? We as technology leaders have been trying to answer this question for a long time, which is how do we go faster and in a more stable way and in a more secure way? And I believe that with DevOps, you finally have that answer. Because even if you look back when I was at Real Networks, we had a development team and an operations team. And it really was this balance and this idea that that balance was a healthy conflict. But what we found is actually that by working together, you can deliver faster to the market. And this is a great concept. This means that my job gets to be helping people work together better, helping people collaborate. And so the answer to this age-old question turns out to be collaboration. And that's a cool thing. That means that as technology and transformation leaders, we get to focus on helping people collaborate and work better together. And in doing so, we drive better business results. Now, that's a cool thing to be doing on a day-to-day basis.
That's cool. So from there, you go to your current position at Wiley, right?
That's right. That's right. That was certainly a hard decision, but the opportunity to come to work at Wiley as a CIO and CISO was simply one I could not pass up. And I've been there about a year and a half now, a little over. And I certainly feel like I made the right choice. It has been a wonderful experience. Get to be both in the research technology space and the educational technology space, both of which are going through massive disruption in a company that is trying to transform, that is transforming. So the transformational leadership is perfect there. There's no friction to pushing that transformation. I find a lot of times that, especially leading a consulting firm, when you're trying to help companies through a transformation, you need to have both the ground level support of the people who are the engineers, as well as the executive support. And that's something we have at all levels at Wiley. And so it makes driving transformation that much easier. This is a company that's ready to transform and is transforming. And so it's an exciting place to be. I get to play a wonderful part of that.
So if you've been there a year and a half, the bulk of your time has been during COVID-19. How was that to handle?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I think I got about maybe 4 or 5 months working in the office, which I feel really lucky for. It was really good to get to meet my teams. I got to do a lot of traveling in those first 5 or so months, meet the teams around the world. In fact, I was out in APAC right about when things were starting to heat up. I remember that because people had started to wear masks at hotels. And yeah, so I feel lucky that I had that time in the offices. That said, Wiley has done a really great job transitioning to work from home. And one of the other things I'll say is that I'm lucky in that I've got an amazing team around me. And they did a tremendous job getting the entirety of Wiley. It's 7,000 full-time employees transitioned to work from home in a matter of days, pretty seamlessly. And that was because, both the preparation and forethought and scaling ability, as well as the ability to rotate and pivot very quickly in response to a need which no one had anticipated.
Well, I got to imagine after doing all that DevOps consulting, you brought the religion to Wiley as well.
Yeah, it's certainly a big part of what we're doing there. And I think one of the reasons they brought me on, luckily they were already on the path. So it wasn't completely new, and I will certainly not take all the credit for it. But it is something that I feel very strongly about and that we've continued to grow. And one of the many transformations that we're going through at Wiley is that DevOps transformation. And that's been wonderful to see as well, even the progress over the past year and a half.
I think you guys moved to Azure AD during this whole time frame as well, right?
That's right. Well, as you mentioned, I get to wear 2 hats at Wiley as the CIO and the CISO. Security is so important to us at Wiley. Security for us as a company means security for our customers. And we're talking about research and education and research institutes and educational institutions. And we need to make sure that their data is protected. We need to make sure that our systems are as secure as possible. So we've had a real focus there, beginning to also focus on DevSecOps, right? But fundamentally thinking about cybersecurity just as the way we do business and not as a gate to doing technology, right? But just the way we build technology. Azure AD is one of those great examples where there was an opportunity to improve our Active Directory. We moved to Azure AD. Now, I'll tell you a funny story. When we originally were forming this project, the team came to me and said, hey, we've got this 18-month plan to move to Azure AD, and then we'll be able to stop paying what was almost $1 million for our current SSO provider. And asked them when the contract expired, and they said, oh, in 6 months, our annual reviews. I said, what if we do it in 6 months? And they told me afterwards they were very mad about this. I said, let's do it in 6 months. And they said, oh, it will never happen. And I challenged them. And I've got the amazing security team. They put together a plan. They executed it. They got it done in 6 months, saving us almost $1 million a year. Now have dual factor SSO, best in breed technology, authentication. And that's just one of many security projects that this team is pulling off to make Wiley more secure and easier to navigate for the people who building great technology and education products.
And Active Directory's been a great idea for a long time. You know, you sign into your desktop once, and then everything, like you said, makes SSO easy, makes authenticating to SharePoint easy. And if you're using Office 365, you're already just logged into everything. But before they moved that to the cloud, AD was a nightmare to try and install and get working and keep working. And the care and feeding, the Azure AD has just been a game changer.
I was going to say, at least that's the theory, right? It should be real nice and simple, but then somehow it gets really complex. But this has been a huge benefit for us. We're continuing to focus on identity governance, administration, so that it's really seamless, so that onboarding and offboarding is seamless, so that people are working as soon as they start with Wiley. And this becomes even more important as we look to a completely remote workforce.
So you can't live on bits and bytes alone. What do you do when you're away from keyboard?
I do try and get away from the keyboard once in a while. And that seems harder and harder these days, doesn't it? Because our offices are also our homes for so many of us.
It's always beckoning.
Right. Not only that, but I found some of the social things I do are now also on the computer. And so I'm sitting there having a social event and chatting with people on Zoom, and I'm like, my email is right here too. So really important to get away. I have a few hobbies. I play upright bass. I ski. Skiing's great because you can't hold a computer and ski at the same time. I also do martial arts, which I love, which also similarly gets me focused on nothing but doing the art. Is really good for getting me away from the computer.
Of which martial art are you a practitioner?
So the primary one I'm focusing on these days is Jeet Kune Do, which originated with Bruce Lee, and really interesting and exciting in its focus on using what works best. But I also do a little Muay Thai as well as some Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So a little bit of everything, but it keeps me busy, keeps me healthy, and gives me a little bit of a mental break when I need it.
Oh, so you're a grappler as well, huh?
Yes. Not a very good one, but it's good to try and be balanced in the different types of arts. But I always say, if I get out there, I'm sparring or grappling. It's very hard to think about tech plans when someone's trying to hit me in the face.
That's a good callback to Ken Pickering, who got into boxing for the same reason.
Yeah.
It'll definitely clear your head when someone's attacking you.
Yes. It's somewhat meditative in that you are in the moment, focused on nothing but what you're doing.
Now, when did you start playing the upright bass?
Well, I've played, this goes back to Seattle. And I moved out there and I was staying with a friend and he said, you can stay with me for as long as you like. You don't have to pay rent. There's one rule. You've got to play upright bass in our band. And we've got a show in 10 weeks. So I've played for quite a long time. I've never got very good, but I think it's a beautiful instrument and I love to play. And yeah, definitely exercises a different part of your mind, helps keep you creative and focused in a different way.
What kind of band was that?
That band, so that was a combination of bluegrass and punk rock, if you can imagine it.
What were they called?
Oh, this is going way back, Andrew. They were called the Haywire Hobos.
Huh.
It was a lot of fun, and I got to play with a couple other bands, played all sorts of music, everything from Hawaiian music to kind of bluesy rock. It's a beautiful instrument. I mean, one of the things I love about that is that you don't even need to know how to play. If you just pluck a note on an upright bass, it makes a beautiful sound. And so if you do know a bit about how to play, it's a wonderful instrument. And because it's so big, it's very tactile and you really feel the music in a way you don't with other instruments.
And do you ride motorcycles as well?
That's right. I do. And most of the times this is a summer thing. New York City is not the best place to ride. Usually spend some time every summer riding around in Vermont, upstate New York.
What kind of bike?
I've got a Triumph Thruxton, so cafe racer bike.
Yep.
Can work in the smaller cities, but really nice to open it up. And the roads of Vermont are really nice, wooded, turny, but not, nice turns, but not a lot of traffic. Just beautiful out there.
Fewer people, fewer problems.
That is definitely true.
There's a shop near me called Chop Ahead. And they work on older Triumph bikes. They do a bunch of custom work. They've helped me out. I have an Indian Chief.
Oh, yeah. That's a great bike.
Thank you. The cover art for season 4, which you will be a part of, has me sitting on the Indian Chief about to ride away.
No kidding. Now, when you say the name Chop Ahead, do you have to say it with the Boston accent?
Oh, yeah. There is no R. It's CHOPPAHEAD. Chop Ahead.
Of course. That's great.
Those guys also come from a punk rock background.
Oh, yeah. No kidding. Yeah, that's great. It's another beautiful way to get engaged that steps away from the computer.
Thank you very much, Sean, for joining us and sharing with the listeners of Underserved your experiences.
Thank you so much for having me on the podcast, Andrew. Really a pleasure talking to you.
And we'll talk to everyone soon on the next episode of Underserved.